Hi, Ariel. It's so good to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm glad to meet you.
It's good to meet you too.
I have a few questions and I was hoping you could answer them.
Yes.
So, what inspired you to write the book, The Beautiful Something Else?
Well, I started thinking about one of my favorite old stories, which was like a fairy tale, I guess. That is a story called The Red Shoes. And you probably remember there's a pair of red boots in the book. And I was thinking about the story of the girl with the red shoes. The original story, the person had like a pair of red shoes they had made themselves that was very personal to them, that they felt like kind of reflected them as a person, and then they
Mhm.
traded them in for like a different pair of red shoes. And that pair of red shoes like danced them around like a puppet, and they didn't have
Mhm.
control over it. So I really loved the idea of finding a pair of shoes that felt just right to someone as an individual so that they could feel like they were really like in control of their own life in a way. So that was the original idea, and they kind of took it and ran with it.
Yeah, I think that in this book, Sparrow gets control of her own boots.
I think so too. I love that. Yes.
So, how did you come up with the title?
So the original title was actually Sparrow Shining Bright. That was like my placeholder title.
Mhm.
Um, every time I start writing a book, I come up with like a working title, right? But then at the very end of the book, I think there's a line that goes something like like I'm not this or that, I'm something else, right? And that's
Mhm.
a beautiful thing. And so my editor was like, what do you think about kind of using that as part of the title? So that's what we decided to go with. Yeah.
Mm. It says in the back, I am neither both something else. Being alive is something beautiful.
hmm Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's a very creative way. I've never actually thought of like coming up with a working title. I've always just tried to come up with the title because the way I like to do it is I think that the title will help me understand what the book will be about.
Yes. Yes. And that's why it's so important to me, even with my working title, if I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the title that ends up on the cover of the book,
Hmm.
like you're exactly right. Like I need to have a working title that kind of communicates the heart of the book, right? Like even
Hmm.
if it doesn't end up being on the front. Yeah.
So, do you have a shadow or do you like feel like you do like in the book?
hmm Growing up, I think I kind of had this version of myself that I needed to keep quiet because it wasn't really necessarily very safe for me to express like my full self. So, like, my shadow wouldn't be necessarily something that I saw as separate from me, but definitely like a part of myself that I wasn't allowed to like let out and play. Not so much as an adult. Now I think like now that I'm older, I tend to me and my shadow are one and the same, kind of like at the end of the book. Yeah, but that's definitely part of me, big part. I love that question.
Okay. So, how did you come up with Sparrow's friends? Why do you pronounce it wine?
It's when, yeah, but that's a really yeah, yeah.
Wet and Sully, yeah.
hmm they're actually, so when I think of characters, I don't ever take someone who's exactly like someone I know in real life, but often I take like little parts of people that I know and love and include them in the book. So I have a friend who likes to dress very creatively, like in the way that Wen does.
Hmm.
And I have friends who are just loyal to a fault, who love me and forgive me, maybe even when I feel like I shouldn't be forgiven, who are very similar to Wen. And I have friends who carry themselves with like a lot of inner knowing and dignity in the same way that Sully does, and has like kind of a wry sense of humor in the same way that Sully does. Yeah, so I took like little bits and pieces of the people that I love and include them in my characters pretty often.
So your characters are basically people in your life all put together, the good
Yeah,
parts.
yeah, like a composite of different people.
So
Yeah,
they're like good positive shadows.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So, um, what gave you the idea for the play in the end?
Yeah. So I was thinking about how Sparrow had been expected their whole life to basically perform, right? And put on like a show version of Sparrow. And I was thinking, like, what would be really challenging to Sparrow would be to have to participate in a performance that required them to be really authentic.
Mm,
So I thought it would be a really fun way to bring the story full circle, right? Sparrow gets to be their most authentic self, but they also get to put it out there for other people to witness in a way that they've been putting out this fake self. So it's kind of like a way to bring those two things together and make some healing for Sparrow. Yeah.
mm. So, is there anyone that you like as much as Shadow? Is Sparrow also bits and pieces of other people, or is it just, I don't know, some random person who just popped up into your mind?
So Sparrow and I have a lot of similarities. Like it's not exactly like me, but like my experiences as a kid definitely informed my understanding of Sparrow. And also, in being an author of my first two books, I've gotten to meet like a whole lot of kids and readers, and a lot of them have shared with me like their experiences with trying to be themselves and how difficult that can be sometimes. And so I was thinking, yeah, when you're feeling a little bit different already at an age where you're trying to sort of figure out like who am I versus who are my parents and what makes me different from the people who I've grown up with. It felt like something that was a shared experience by a lot of people that age, right? But definitely Sparrow's impulsiveness and desire to do really good at everything that they do, that's definitely informed by me when I was younger. I was a lot like that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Can you tell us about your process of writing the book?
sure. Yeah, well, I one of my favorite things to do at the beginning of writing a book is to sit around and play the what if game with somebody that I trust and care about. Like we often go for really long walks like in the woods or there's like this wetlands that's close to my house.
Hmm?
So I'll go for like a long walk with someone and then just kind of brainstorm and come up with ideas. Like what if your shadow was kind of like the one in Peter Pan and it took on a life of its own and it had opinions that seemed to be different than yours. Um, so I just like going around and playing with ideas. And then after that, I sit down and my agent encourages me strongly to make a good outline so that I know kind of what's going to happen, major points from start to finish. And then I get to go in and do the actual fun part, which is like putting the
The
words
details?
in. Yeah, making the characters come to life. Yeah.
So first you're sort of like naming the events like in a timeline, and then
Mhm.
you're actually writing the article, putting in little nice details here and there.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes if I get stuck, I'll realize that I need to spend more time with the character. So I'll sit down and like do a little drawing of the character and make like a Pinterest board maybe of their interests and hobbies and like their experiences. And then I can walk around and be like, sometimes I'll go out for errands for the day and I'll ask myself, like, how would Wen experience this? Like, what kind of things would Wen be drawn to going and looking at and go pretend to be Wen for a day? Right? And that kind of helps me get into their mindset and make sure that they come in across as a like a fully fledged person, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense in your own way. Um, so did you just write down ideas as they came to your mind, or did you like process them, think through it, make sure they made sense?
Yes. I rely really heavily on people who are alpha readers, who are like the first people who read my book, and those are the people who love me a whole lot and are willing to be very encouraging. And then I have beta readers who are friends that I trust who can read my book and give me like constructive feedback. So it might be positive, or it might be, this really didn't make so much sense to me. Maybe you want to go and change this or move it to somewhere else. So having feedback from people that I trust is just such a huge part of that. Yeah.
I think that's very important in everyone's life. Thank you
Hmm.
for that. So how long did it take for you to write the book?
So this book actually took me the least amount of time of all of my books so far. I think it took me maybe, if I'm not counting, like going through and doing line edits after my editor looked at it, like just the writing part, maybe like 5.5 weeks, about five
Five
and a
and
half
a half
weeks.
weeks. That's
Yeah.
actually, if you think about it, half weeks is actually a really long time. But
Yeah.
for writing a book, there was an author I met who was writing a really thin picture book, and it took her like a year and a few more months.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
And
And
books are
for
so
a book
unique though,
that's pretty
yeah.
thick, I'm really surprised. It's like you're like Sully who just knows what's right there.
I have to say that the story did seem to be working with me too, because my first book was just it took such a long time to write it. So I kind of feel like stories are like if you've ever heard parents tell stories about like their babies and how long they took to do something, like every child is different, right? So every book is very different too. Some books just need a lot longer, and some just come very, very quickly. So yeah.
Yeah. So, what message or theme do you hope readers, like really young readers, what do you hope they learn from the book?
Hmm. I hope that I hope that they learn that sometimes in order to do something that you don't have experience with, like in Sparrow's case, learning how to identify safe people and trust them so that they could be themselves fully. Um, it's very normal to make mistakes, and that's all right. Like if your process is a bit messy or you make mistakes, like people who are your true community are going to love and hold you through those mistakes and be supportive of you, and give you chances to grow, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that you're worthy of love and support, I think.
I think that no one could have put it in better words. I think that was amazing. So if you could give one piece of advice for kids who want to be authors, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. I think it's very similar advice. Write badly. Don't be afraid to write badly, right? Like take chances, and if you write something and you've taken a big risk and it doesn't pay off, that's okay. You've learned what doesn't work for you. So just go to the next creative risk and go for it. The nice thing about being very young is that time is on your side, right? Like you have time to explore and make mistakes, and that's a beautiful thing. That's really great. And some of my biggest lessons and biggest growth spurts as an author have come from like the choices that I made that didn't pan out as opposed to the ones that really paid off, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think your choices for this book were absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you. That's very
It
kind.
was
Thank
it
you.
was like very inspiring, and I think that a lot of readers would like it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I hope so.
If you could travel back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice just when you started writing or in any really event in your life, what would it be?
I think my advice to my younger self when I just first started writing would be you're not going to run out of ideas. And if somebody tells you you have to redo this chapter or this whole introduction really needs to be rewritten, don't worry. It's okay. You're not going to run out of ideas. Like your brain's not going to stop being smart. And this idea that you've had is not the last one you'll ever have. Like you really will generate ideas. So don't worry about it. Just redo as much as you need to.
I think that's a very true piece of advice
Oh,
considering how amazing this book turned out to be. That's very, very true.
oh, thank you.
So did you always want to be an author or did you want to be something else, someone else's child?
I wanted to be a paleontologist.
I am not
uh,
familiar with that.
I wanted to be like the people who dig up dinosaur bones and then put them together. I wanted to do that.
I think that's amazing. If your book characters were real people, which one would you invite to a dinner party and why? You can invite up to 3 people.
Oh, excellent. I think I would invite maybe Fox from A Touch of Ruckus because Fox loves to bake, and I love inviting people to a dinner party who might bring some baked goods with them. I think it would be really fascinating to talk to Aunt Max because she seems to have like such an interesting life, like as a professor and someone who's like traveled around. Like, I bet she would have some really interesting stories to tell.
Ooh,
Maybe,
especially if it was like a bonefire.
yeah,
She would get really
absolutely.
comfortable there.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it would also be kind of funny to how you spend time with a friend and you've got that one friend that you're listening to something and you look at each other and you just exchange a look and you kind of know what they're thinking just by what's on their face. I think Sully would be really fun to do that with at a
Mm.
dinner party. Yeah,
Sully's like a dream wizard.
absolutely.
He
Agree.
really
Agree
is.
100%.
Yeah. So if you had him there, he could just wave his wand of his brain and then just create some waffle or some sort of treat or something.
Absolutely. I think that would be such a fun combination of people to spend time with. Yeah.
So if your characters would were created into a movie, are there any details you would like to change or something like that?
Oh my goodness. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Maybe I would put a few more animals in just for funsies because I love animals.
You remind me of Sparrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see what else. I guess I hadn't thought about like what would I change? I might make Trader Jolene's even bigger so people have even more clothes to go and choose from and fun things to go and choose from.
The way it's described in the book, I imagine a huge mansion turned into a shop.
Yeah. I kind of feel like too, I had to be careful like how many scenes that I included because I needed to keep the story going, but I think it would be really fun. The only person's house I think that we didn't get to go and see is Sully's house, so it might be fun to do some scenes in Sully's house just to get to hang out
Ooh,
with his family.
maybe you could make another book
Hmm.
where there's
Oh
like
yeah.
this sort of tragedy, and then Sully's house, for some reason, there's like this force that keeps Sully's house. It didn't get, not even a brick fell or something.
I
And
love
then
that
so that they
idea.
everyone just gets into Wendy in Sully's house, but then
Mhm.
they bring some things with it. But even though some of it is destroyed, as soon as they pass into Sully's house and he lets them, then their things suddenly magically just are not broken anymore.
I love that because he's a wizard. And because
And then
Sully's
oh,
sisters
and
seem like the nicest people, I think it would be fun
yeah.
to hang out with him. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then maybe we could find out that one of Sully's long lost relatives is a wizard, and then that wizard is actually a bat. And then Sully secretly has a bat house in his attic that I just invented.
I love it. I want to go there. Now we should do it.
You could add that in a movie or something.
Absolutely. I like the way you think. I love
I
it.
don't know. When I just read a book, I like, and then I talk to the person who created the book. I just have the ideas for the next book.
I
I don't
love
know
that.
why. It just flows.
I think that's wonderful. You know, that's one of my favorite ways to get ideas for like a story is to watch like a movie or read a book that I really enjoy. Like it gets your gears going. It's good.
I've done this so many times now. I wonder if I'm gonna just have to combine them all in where there's a galaxy and there's a bunch of doors and then all sorts of characters from different books just spill in, and
Yeah.
then like there are all sorts of things that spill in with them too, and they have to find a way to live and survive and get back to their stories.
Yes, a portal fantasy. We love a good portal fantasy. I love it. I think that would be so much fun. I would love to read that.
Are you planning to write more books?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. In fact, after I'm done right now, I'm going to write a middle grade horror proposal to send to my agent. Yeah.
That
So
sounds amazing.
I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
Hopefully you get some ideas from here.
Yes, absolutely. I talking to people, I know some people get a lot of ideas from spending a lot of time alone, but I get so many ideas from talking to people. It's my favorite. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remind me of Wine and Sully and Azul and November, all of them combined into one person.
Nice. You know, one of my friends who is an author told me like one time that they feel like all of their characters has like a little piece of them in it, right?
Yeah.
When you're writing characters, you're writing just like a little aspect of
Yeah,
yourself.
you have Wynn's chill and
Mhm.
Sully's like thinking
Yeah.
and and like Azul and November, you just don't care what you wear, and I love
Yeah.
that.
Super. I love it. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. All of those things are true.
I love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for your time.
This has been my favorite interview to date. So thank you so much for inviting me. I feel like my day, this has been the highlight of my week. This is lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. One more question. Are you gonna write in a second book for The Beautiful Something Else?
Oh, you know what? If I were asked to, I would. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll have to see. We'll see.
Anyway, bye.